Welcome to the Legends of Boxing Show on the Gruely Cruise Sports Network. The Legends of Boxing Show is brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation. Jackie Richardson, Alex Ramos do a great job there. Go on Facebook and check them out. I'm your host for the Legends of Boxing Show, Mike Goodpaster, and I have the pleasure today to introduce what I think is one of the most underrated fighters of the 1970s and 80s. He was the first ever Cruiserweight World Champion, went on to win that title twice. Help me welcome to the show, Marvin Camel. How you doing, Marvin?
Hello again. It's nice to be here. I'm glad to be here.
All right, and just from doing a little research, you grew up on a reservation, one of 13 children. You want to tell us what growing up was like?
You know, the growing up with me on the reservation was okay. It was all right. I'll tell you why. Because my dad was a black and my mother's Native American. So, and my dad he was a boxer, and then he turned around and had a gym. So he had kids that boxed. So by doing that and having me box, my life was easy because being on a reservation where 90% of them are Caucasian and being black, you hear a lot of these racial slurs that would get under one guy's skin. But I started boxing at 12 years old.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I never heard a slur. I never heard a racist remark because the kids in my class, if I heard that, they think in the back of their mind that, oh my God, I hope Marvin Camel doesn't come on court and knock me on my ass. So I had it pretty easy, as well as my brothers, because they boxed also. And my oldest brother, he was very boisterous, and he didn't take nothing from anybody. So, but we all got along.
All right. So, what led you to boxing? I know you said your father was a boxer. You said you started at 12. But do you remember your first amateur fight, or just how you got started training?
Yes, I sure do, because my older brothers boxed. So we would go. My family and I would go to the VFW club in Polson, Montana. And we would be sitting there watching the bouts, and then I get a tap on my back. And I turn around, and it's my dad. And I was 12 years old, and I've never boxed in a ring. And he says, Marvin, how would you like to box this kid over here? He's on a club, but he doesn't have anybody to box. And what am I going to say to him? He's standing up there looking right down on me. I said, well, okay. So I proceeded to go into the dressing room. I didn't have a robe. I didn't have my trunks, but I used the club stuff. And when I stepped in the ring, I fought this one kid, same weight, same height, and I lost. My first fight in history, I lost by a split decision in Polson, Montana. And that was the start of it.
Yeah,
and because of that,
was it difficult being a boxer in Montana? Because when you think of great states with boxing, Montana's not one of them that pops up. And really, even to this day, outside of yourself and Roger Rouse, there weren't a whole lot of big-time boxers to come out of Montana.
I had it good because I boxed for the VFW club, and by boxing with them, they had a club, they had a team, and I would go all over the state of Montana. I would travel here, I travel there, I'll travel here, and I would go with the club and I stay overnight. They paid for meals, they paid for a hotel, they did this. So I felt like I loved it. I'm not going to say I liked it, but I loved it, and because I was tall and I was lengthy. I was a lot, and being on a reservation and being who I am, we didn't have a whole lot to eat, and being from a family of 12, we had to share the food. So then my weight was very, very light, and I was probably a head taller than 99% of the people that I boxed.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I've had close to 200 fights in Montana. And everybody out there wanted to get a piece of Marvin Camel. Because, who the hell is he coming off the reservation and think he's going to do some damage to me? And that was beneficial to me because I had all types of boxers that I fought against, tall ones, short ones, fat ones, skinny ones. And I tell you what, I enjoyed this sport. I love this sport.
Yeah, and it seems to me like because of that, coming off the reservation and the stigma that some attach with that, that you were fighting more for just yourself too, or more than just for yourself.
Well, see, it was for me, but on the same token, I was fighting for. I'm not looking back and say, well, I was fighting for the Native Americans because who the hell do they have as far as the boxing is concerned, or the people from the state of Montana? But I was fighting for myself because I'm the guy that's going to have to win the next fight to go to the next journey. And by doing that, my life was very, very, very easy in a boxing business.
Yeah, and I know your dad was probably one of the people that was instrumental in this, but who else was instrumental young in your career? I know from reading, I saw the name Jim Anderson and Elmer Boyce pop up a lot. You want to talk about what they meant to you as a young boxer and as a young man?
Well, Jim Anderson, and he's still living today, and he lives in Polson, Montana. And he was a guy that was in my corner 99.9% of the time. He was a guy that was instrumental to me on my training. He was instrumental to me on how I got in shape, because he would always be asking me, did you run today? Did you hit the bag? See, because we lived 12 miles apart. He lived in Polson, I lived in Ronan. But he would always be there to take me on these trips to other cities to fight for the state titles, the matches that we have in around Montana. And we had boxers that were pretty good on the other teams, and they felt that they were good enough to go up against Marvin Camel and hopefully beat him. But that was the greatest thing that I have ever went through, because I had opponent after opponent after opponent out there trying to do the same thing. And they were being built up, this guy's going to fight Marvin Camel this day here in this tournament. I tell you what, that I thrived on that, because when the tournament started, and there was probably 10, 15 kids in each weight class, and you got to have about 3 bouts before you fight for the championship. That was good for me, because I got all the experience from all types of boxers that I boxed, and it was beautiful. I loved Montana. I loved the surrounding states, because they're all waiting for me.
Yeah. So
I tell you what, I was ready for them.
When did you know that you were going to be a professional boxer? I mean, was it something that just kind of happened, or was it something that from the age of 12 that you looked forward to?
No, I really didn't look forward to it, saying that I'm going to become a professional boxer one day. I just stayed with the program and advanced. I stayed with the program and advanced. And then one day, when I graduated from high school, one of the elders from my reservation, Walter McDonald, came to me and says, I talked to Elmer Boyce from Missoula, Montana, and Elmer Boyce was a promoter out of Missoula. He had, he helped Roger Rouse and Pete Jovanovich with Leroy Romero and Doug Rouse and Roger Rouse. And then he came to me one day and he says, I got a meeting with Elmer Boyce, and I want him to meet you. And I traveled 56 miles to Missoula, Montana, and we sat down at the Oxford Hotel restaurant in Missoula, Montana, and Elmer laid out the rules and regulations, what I would have to go through if he was going to be in my corner as a manager.
Yeah. And
everything that he said that I must do, it was easy, because I did that anyway. I'm not a carouser. I'm not a drinker. I don't run around and chase wild women. My main goal in life was train. And because of that fact, when I was in high school, I hate to get off the subject, but when I went through high school, I did the same thing. I boxed in high school, not boxed in high school, but I played football, basketball, and ran track. And then on weekends, I would box. So it all played into Marvin Camel's rigors of who I became. And because of that fact, when I graduated from high school, I was known as the best athlete in the whole state of Montana because of that fact.
Was there ever any thoughts of pursuing any of the other sports instead of boxing?
Was there any what?
Was there ever any thoughts of pursuing any of the other sports instead of being a boxer? Did you have a chance to go play college in one of the other sports?
Oh, no, because I'm from a big family, and I work, and when I graduated from high school,
you got to get paid.
There was, you got to get paid, and there wasn't any foresight of me going to college because, on the same token, I could have, but I wasn't approached by any basketball people or football people or in a college area to say, Marvin Camel, please come to our college, we need you.
Yeah.
No, so I didn't have that. So I stayed with boxing, and boom.
All right. So you turned pro in 1973. You fought Joe Williamson at the Civic Center in Butte, Montana. What do you remember about your professional debut?
Joltin' Joe, they call him. You know, he's a guy that he was a non-member. When I say a non-member, he was from the Caucasian area, and he was being built up to raise Cain against Marvin Camel. And I tell you what, they built him up, and but on the same token, I'm back in the gym training. And when the fight came off and the bell rung, I mean, there was no more Joltin' Joe Williamson to be found. All his...
They built him up and you tore him down, right, Marvin?
Yeah, you know, and that's the case with a lot of these guys that I box, because they don't realize that my height and my weight and the way I train, it's going to be very, very tough for them to even, surpass the middle part of the fight. But that's okay, you know. I live with it, and I try not to think back on it. But what I did in the boxing ring as an amateur can never be equaled by any other amateur in the state of Montana in the boxing business.
Yeah, and unfortunately, amateur boxing is nowhere near as big as what it used to be. I think people forget 60s, 70s, and 80s. You could see on Wide World of Sports an amateur boxing competition where, I mean, the Felt Forum or Madison Square Garden would have 20,000 people in it for the Golden Gloves, and it's just not the way it was anymore.
Well, you know, they don't have anybody that has an interest in even having kids. You know, my brother's up there right now trying to get a gym going.
Yeah.
But when I was coming up, before I was coming up, there was no interest to the public for the boxing. But when I came along, and people, you know, the Missoulian in Missoula, Montana, they were very, very instrumental on me and my climb. And because of that fact, Elmer Boyce was very instrumental on getting the Missoulian to publish any information about Marvin Camel and where he's been and what he's doing and how he's doing and where he's headed.
All right. So when we move along here, your first loss was a split decision to Matthew Saad Muhammad, who was a great light heavyweight champion in Stockton, California, 1976. You want to talk to us a little bit about your first fight with Matthew Saad Muhammad?
Well, I tell you, I get along. I like Matthew Saad, not Matthew Saad Muhammad, but we talking about Matthew Saad Muhammad, right? Not Matt Franklin.
No, well, it was Matt Franklin at that point, I think. It became Matthew Saad Muhammad. But you fought the two fights with him. You lost the first, won the second. The first fight was in Stockton. You lost a split decision. What are your recollections of that first fight with Matthew Franklin?
Oh,
is there any film that exists on that fight? Because I would love to see that fight.
Boy, and the bad thing about that film that I've had, people, right? I let people borrow them, and that's my bad thing that I never see the return of some of these films, some of the best fight I had on tape.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have any. I don't have anything as far as that's concerned. You know,
Because I can imagine those were two all-out wars if you guys were fighting in them.
You know, and Matthew Saad Muhammad. You know, he was a homeless guy back when they found him.
Yeah.
You know, before he started boxing and stuff, and they cultured him to be one of the best fighters in the boxing business as a light heavyweight.
Yeah.
And even today, you know, you got to respect him for what he's done and where he's been. But on the same token, I respect him because I know I fought and beat the guy. And like I say, the first fight was very, very tough. I mean, if you sit down and you drop your hands 1 minute, then you're going to get connected. So you had to be on guard 24/7 in the fight that we had. And I respect him to this day. I respect him every step of the way. I tell you what, if I fought him again, it would still be a pretty good fight because I would go right into training today, and I would go out there and I would try to knock him out. But on the same token, he'd be doing the same thing with me, towards me.
Yeah, and when you look at that first fight, you lost that fight. Close decision, could have went either way. What did you learn from that first loss headed into the second fight with Matthew Saad Muhammad? Did you make any adjustments for the second fight, which you beat him?
Boy, you know what? I couldn't make any adjustment in my training because I trained like a wild man and I ran like a wild man. And the reason that he beat me was I couldn't say why. Maybe it was something that I didn't see. It's something that the judges saw that I wasn't doing. Maybe I got caught one more punch than I delivered because that's how close it was. So I don't feel that I did anything wrong in the fight. But on the same token, if I lost the last fight, there's got to be something. There's got to be something there that I'm missing.
Yeah.
So then I increased my road work. And when I lived in Missoula, Montana, I used to run up to the M every day. And that's all uphill. And I used to run along St. Regis, and it was all uphill. And I said, I'm not going to get beat. I'm not going to get beat. I'm going to train. And that's the way I work.
Yeah, and in the second fight, you beat him by a majority decision in Missoula. What was it like to fight in front of your hometown crowd?
Well, for me, to fight in front of my hometown crowd is, I'm not going to say immaterial, because when I get out there and if I box, I'm going to go out there and box to the best of my ability. I can't sit back and say, wait for the end of the round, hear the people yelling, ramping, raving, go Marvin, go Marvin, go Marvin. No, because I got one thing in mind. That's to get out there and punish the guy that's before me and stay on him until the last bell is rung. And as long as I don't get my bell rung before the fight's over, then I'm going to win. You know, not only in the hearts of the people, but in my heart, because I fought my ass off, and I'm going to win this fight. And if I don't win, there's only one person to blame, and that's me.
Yeah. So when you look at this, 1979, you get your first shot at the vacant WBC World Cruiserweight title against Matt Parlov, and that was overseas in a hostile environment. But let's take us up like the year before that, because the Cruiserweight division was invented right around 1978-79. I know you won the NABF Cruiserweight title over Bill Sharkey the middle of 1979. But when did you
that was a light heavyweight.
Was it? Okay.
And when I fought, yeah.
Okay, so when was the first time you heard the idea that a Cruiserweight division was coming?
You know, I can't really say for sure, but I couldn't really say that it was coming. I was just getting ready for the next bout.
Yeah.
And when the Cruiserweight came along, and I fought a couple of heavyweights in the cruiserweight when I was light heavyweight. And I got along pretty good with Jose Sullivan. Jose Sullivan was the president, and he felt that because of my weight and I fought the people that I boxed against would give me the opportunity, put somebody with credibility in the top 10. We didn't have a champion. We had from number 1 to number 10 before the cruiserweight title fight was ever fought for.
Yeah.
And I was put number 1 in the world, and I had 3 fights before I fought for the world title. But it's something that it was unbeknownst to me. But Elmer Boyce, he was in charge of that, and I respect Elmer Boyce for everything he's done for me, and the people that I've been affiliated with, I respect. So it was all, you could never say it was a gimme for my career, because every fight that I fought, I had to fight for.
Yeah, and that Parlov fight, it's not a gimme for you, because I remember watching a Parlov fight, I think on CBS Sports, and you kicked his ass. You got screwed on that. The first cruiserweight title fight ever was a draw. It was a bad decision. You dominated the fight. You won at least 10 or 11 rounds out of the 15. You want to talk a little bit about that? And I think you were fighting in Parlov's hometown, which had to make it rough also.
Well, in that case, with that being a factor, Mate Parlov and we fought in Split, Yugoslavia. You get it? Split, Yugoslavia. We fought in his backyard. This is the first cruiserweight champion of the world. And Mate Parlov was a former light heavyweight champion. I was the current, NABF championship for the United States. So when we got together, and Mate Parlov was put out there as going to be the first cruiserweight champion in history, and he goes up against Marvin Camel, the United States champion, and we're both left-handers. See, I don't think he's ever fought a left-hander before.
Yeah.
But on the same token, I've never fought a left-hander either. See, we're both left-handers.
Yeah.
But on the same token, I took advantage of my conditioning, my weight at the time, that I'm not going to be screwed out of this fight in his backyard. And that's what screwed me out of that fight, was fighting in his backyard.
Well, at least you got a draw, so you didn't lose, which means you fight the rematch 5 months later. You do it in Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, which is not always the fairest place in the world to have a fight either. But you dominated him again, and you become the world champion. I mean, what was that like for you? What was that night like for you?
Well, that night we had countless people come in from Montana that drove and had a bus come down there, and now the crowd is going to be in my corner. But I don't need the crowd in my corner in order to fight my best. But when the bell rung, and when Mate Parlov was announced as he's going to fight Marvin Camel, and this is the fight's going to make me, Marvin Camel, be who I am, win the world title. And when he came out there and having that little old jab of his flipping around like a bird with a busted wing, I know this is going to be mine. In my mind, I was ready. I was ready to go out there and kick some butt. And I don't care who was out there. If I fought Muhammad Ali or Joe Frazier or anybody else, I'll be fighting the same way, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to win. But on the same token, that's my attitude. No matter where I fight or who I fight, I'm going to win. And because he won last time, because we fought in his backyard, I'm going to turn the tails on him, and I'm not going to beat him by a split decision. I'm going to beat him by a unanimous decision. And I'm going to stay on his case until I see that tongue hanging out, and he's gasping for air, and I'm going to be looking at him. I'm not going to say, come on, come on, come on. I'm going to stay on his case until hell freezes over. And that's what I did. And the people out there, I could see their mouths wide open. I could count every tooth in their mouth. Come on, Marvin. Come on, get him. We're not going to see another robbery like we did in Split, Yugoslavia. And the funny thing is, I fought in Split. And I fought in Split. I should have known right off the bat it was going to be a split decision.
Yeah. Well, it could have been draw Yugoslavia.
Boy, yeah, it could have been a draw, but then, that's the way it was. A split is a draw, and draw is a split, and we're going to meet again. And I tell you what, you better be ready again, because this time I stayed on his case until hell froze over.
Yeah. Man, it froze over on him. You become the first Cruiserweight Champion of the world.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. Had you had any dealings with Don King up to that point?
No, I sure haven't. And the reason that, Don King, he had a plan in mind. He had a plan in mind when he approached Elmer Boyce about Marvin Camel. Because Don King, at that point in time, had control over what's his name?
Carlos De Leon.
Carlos De Leon.
Yeah.
So he was promoting Carlos De Leon, and I had a contract with Don King that he was going to promote my next fight. So he put Carlos De Leon and me together on the same card to fight each other.
Yeah, that was at the Superdome, the infamous No Moss fight, Duran-Leonard 2.
Yep, you're right there. And I tell you what, go ahead.
That was one of the bloodiest fights you'll ever see. And the thing I remember about it, I actually watched this fight last night just because I knew we were doing the interview, so I figured I might as well be prepared. So the thing that stood out to me is the first 3 rounds, like most of your fights, you started off really slow, and then you just kind of came on from there. You ended up losing a majority decision. The fight was extremely close. You want to talk a little bit about your mindset and why you were sometimes sort of a slow starter?
Well, to me, I never thought ever thought I was a slow starter, since you brought it up.
Well, you picked up steam, though, as you went on. You were a lot better at the end of the fight than you were to start of the fight, even, which is impressive.
Well, I think it's like anything else you do as far as being a athlete. And if you train, it's like when I start off running 6 miles a day, I start off slow. But as the time goes on, I'll pick up a little more speed. And that's the way life is. You don't go out there and burn all your energies the first or second round. You go out there and start off slow. It's like I'm an old car. I got to run kind of slow, then I start picking up speed. Then before you know it, I got my opponents on the ropes. I got them on a run.
Yeah.
And that's the way I've always fought. And if I run up the hills of Montana, I'm not going to start off real fast. I got to start off slow and get loosened up to where when you do get to the top, I'm running with a little more speed, and I'm not as tight. I'm a little more limber. And that's the way the boxing business is. You don't go out there and get cocky right off the bat, because if you go out there right off the bat and swing, you're going to be cold. And if you get hit, it's going to hurt a lot worse than if you wait a couple of rounds and get warmed up. Yeah. Because those punches, they're more brisk, and your body is more tight. So when you get hit, it's going to flex, but then every bone in your body is going to feel it. But as time goes on, you start getting more limber, and you become accustomed to getting these shots and getting hit and be able to move.
Yeah, and the thing I always liked about you, and also Matthew Franklin, Matthew Saad Muhammad, whatever name he went by at the time he fought, Marvin Johnson, the guys around that late, is that you really seemed like you imposed your will on the other fighter.
Well, I go out there and I fight my fight. I go out there and I may start off a little bit slow, and I look at them and I get that head down and I stick a jab, and I move to the left, I throw a right hand, and I catch him, and I feel that it's working. So I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit more, and I'm going to turn around, I'm going to fake that jab, and I'm going to right cross him, and see what it's going to do. And if they look at me and saying, "What the hell, what are you doing?" And I'm going to say, "Hey, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it again and again and again and again." As time goes on, they get more tired, and I get more limber. So I could turn around, I could take my little hand, and I could twirl them around like a little top on the floor.
Yeah.
But you got to respect these guys, because a lot of these guys will turn around and uncork one and catch you off guard. And you're sitting there looking up off the floor, and hey, what the heck happened?
Yeah, Carlos De Leon is another one of those guys I don't think gets the credit for being, he didn't get the credit for being as great a fighter as what he was either.
Well, no, he didn't. And like I say, and it's unfortunate that the people in the boxing business, in the boxing realm, that can generate the feelings of the boxer, a lot of times they look at him and say, "Well, he's no good because he's not from my city." Because they got a fighter that's in that city, then they're gonna downgrade any other boxer in the same weight class of the boxer in their city. So that's fine, because when the bell rings, they can't get in a ring with their fighter.
Yeah.
They got to send their fighter out there alone, and then we'll see. Then we'll see who the champ is around here.
Yeah. And the other thing is this, once again, you weren't one of those guys that just stays at home. You had no problem with going to the other guy's backyard. You lost the rematch to De Leon, but then you get a shot against Roddy McDonald, who was from Canada. It was for the vacant IBF World Cruiserweight title, and I think that was the first IBF World Cruiserweight title fight. You went to Halifax, and you took him out in 5 rounds rather easily.
Well, I tell you what, and it's when I went to, and being from Montana, and especially from where I live on the Little Rockies in Missoula, Montana, on the Flathead Reservation, and they don't have rolling hills there; they have mountains. So when you go out running, you got to run uphill, and when you're coming downhill, it's still uphill. That's how steep it was. But I felt that my training, my physique was built for the sport of boxing. And when I went out there, every muscle that I had in my body was being fine-tuned. It's going to be ready for the next guy that gets into that squared circle. And if they want to fight me, then they better come and get ready, because I'm not going to lay down like some of these people, like Roddy McDonald. When I fought him in Halifax, Nova Scotia, by just looking at the guy, he's not somebody that should be in the boxing business.
Yeah.
His height, his weight, his style, he was put there by the people that paid his way to get there.
Yeah, he had the right complexion and the right connections.
There you go. Now you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But I tell you, it's in my career, I don't look at that as a factor as far as me being going to be taken advantage of, because my mindset is to go out there, and I don't care who's in front of me. They're going to have a fight on their hand, win, lose, or draw, and we're going to shake hands when the fight's over, because we're both going to go out there and do the best that we can. But on the same token, when the fight's over, and my record shows that I always was the better fighter.
Yeah. All right, and then once again, after winning the title, you lost it in your first defense to Leroy Murphy. That was in Billings, Montana. What do you remember about that night? And does it ever bother you to look back in the fact that you won the title twice, but you didn't have a successful defense? I hold on. When
when that fight, the Leroy Murphy fight, is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah.
And I felt that we fought in Missoula, Montana, not in Missoula, but was that in Butte?
Billings,
Where was that we fought?
I think it was
Billings, Montana.
Yeah.
And the Montana Boxing Commission had a referee in that bout that should have not been in that ring when a professional fight is going on. This gasshole turned around, and the fight was. I felt that I was winning. I won 90% of the rounds, and because of a small cut at the end of the 14th round, the referee come around and looked in my corner and seen a little bit of blood, and that SOB turned around and stopped the fight because of the cut. He had no reason to stop the fight because if the cut was bad enough to where I couldn't see, the fight should have went ahead and went into the 15th round. And if it was causing me trouble seeing, then he should have stepped in and stopped the fight.
Yeah, especially when you're the defending world champion, Marvin.
And he was some guy that wanted to get known, and he got known in the boxing business in Montana because he was a referee from Montana. He got recognition not because of what he did. I mean, not because of who he thinks he was, but what he did. What he did when he stopped that bout, his credibility in the boxing circles went down in the hole.
Yeah.
Because if you have the audacity to go out there and stop the fight before the 15th round starts, and where the hell do you get your training? Because 99.9% of the referees out there would let the fight start, and then if I couldn't see because of the blood, then you stop the fight. You don't wait until before the start of the 15th round. He had the audacity to come into my corner and said, "Marvin, you can't go anymore. You're cut." And at that point in time, I felt, not only I, but the whole auditorium in Billings would take him out and string him up and let him swing, because what he did. And, I talk to Leroy Murphy every now and then. We get along pretty good. And the thing that happened that night, he knows it wasn't right. When we talk back and forth on the internet, they say, well, the guy's gone now. He won't be able to get out there and wreck somebody else's career because of his thinking that he knew what the hell he was doing. And after that fight, I mean, he had to run out of the ring because there was so much debris and trash going in that square circle that, he should have been shot. If he could have been hit with all that stuff that was going there, he would have had to stop the fight on himself. He would have had to crawl out that ring. But because of that fact, he put Montana boxing in the gutters.
Yeah.
There's never been an upcoming professional. There hasn't been a professional since. I don't think that fight. Because what the hell have they got to fight for? Because if they train there the whole life and want to get out there and have some guy from who knows where stop the bout when it shouldn't have been, then your whole life goes down the drain.
Yeah, and unfortunately, boxing still has that happening all the time, especially with officials' decisions. I mean,
boy,
it's the only sport. It would be like watching the Super Bowl. The Patriots win 13-3, and then Roger Goodell runs out to the middle and says, "We have a split decision." The Rams win the game and walking away.
Yeah. My life, I can't sit back and hold grudges. I can't sit back and say it should have been this way, it should have been that way, because what happens, happens. And the people that were put in there were the people that were put in by the people that put them there. So the people from the state of Montana, I felt, didn't know shit about what the rules and regulations were about boxing and when to stop it and when not to stop it. So I hold them accountable for what happened. And because of that fact, there hasn't been any pros from Montana to this day. Because if they fight their ass off and go out there and lose because of the ignorance of the officials, then why should I go out there and get my ass kicked for 14 rounds and lose the fight?
Yeah.
On a decision. So you got to take that into fact when people get out there and they want to do right. Like me, I have no qualms or quarrels against the boxing. I sit out there and I train to fight the guy that's in front of me. I'm not out there training to fight the referees or the judges. I'm out there to fight the guy that they put in front of me, and if I beat him, give me the rights to be the champ.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that night.
Yeah. You retired in 1990. Was it difficult? I mean, doing something from the age of 12 all the way to 1990, was it a difficult adjustment when you retired?
Well, not really, because I worked my ass off 24/7. And when I retired, I didn't retire. When I got out of the boxing business, I was into pushing these new brake lights, the highlight, that new brake light that you have in your rear of your car, and my wife was part owner of that, so I had to work my ass off, and in the gym I would hang a bag, and I'd be out there bouncing around and knock over the lights and breaking the lights, and so I think getting out of it wasn't as hard, because what did I have to look forward to? It would be really, really hard for me to get out of the boxing business if I was a millionaire and had a thought of retiring or not. But when I got ready to retire, the only thing I had to my well-being is 35 acres of land I bought off my mother from a fight that I had that I could pay her for it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't see a penny that I could generate because of the fight business. The only love that I have for the boxing business is for what I achieved not in the ratings, but in the recognition. I'm not dissatisfied for the pay that I got, because it was never there.
Yeah, a lot of that it was a new division too at Cruiserweight. The other thing is this. Anytime I have a chance to talk to somebody like you so they can tell their story, it's always special to me, because I grew up watching boxing with my father. We'd sit there, we'd watch Marvin Camel fight Parlov for the title. And what I really respect about someone like you is the fact that I know there's a lot of con men and villains in boxing, and you still were able to overcome all that, and you still did something that not many people, and really in your case, nobody could ever achieve again.
No. And the funny thing about it is that the Cruiserweight division, and as far as making money for me, wasn't the issue there, because I fought 38 fights as a light heavyweight, and I fought Matthew Saad Muhammad, I fought all those guys of credibility. But on the same token, I still didn't make any money. So when the Cruiserweight came along, I didn't feel so bad, because I wasn't making any money there either. Not knowing that it's a new commission, that people are wanting to get somebody out there to show their wares and create a new commission where more boxers can get in there and box in their weight class, instead of being 175 pounds and fighting a guy that's 230. They got a weight class that now somebody can get in there and formulate and their bodies to compete and become a world champion in the Cruiserweight division, and then eventually fight a heavyweight. But if you're fighting light heavyweight and you got an opportunity to fight a heavyweight, the weight difference there is too big of a difference to where the lighter guy is going to go out there and win. But if he becomes a solid Cruiserweight division fighter, then he's got more of a chance of becoming a good competition for the heavyweight.
And we've seen guys like Evander Holyfield and Michael Moore make that transition and become the heavyweight champion.
Yep, they have. And like I say, they made good of it because, like Evander Holyfield, and I respect him in every sense of the word. He paid his dues. Michael Moore paid his dues, and there's other fighters that were in the cruiserweight division that fought the heavyweights, paid their dues, and I respect them. But I couldn't. Go ahead.
And in the long run, when you're talking about the money, that money would have been gone by now, anyways. You lose your money, you spend your money, but you know what? In the end, they can't take away what you achieved, which that belt's still around your waist. And that's the greatest thing about this whole thing is once you become a champion, no matter what else happens, when people call you champ, it means something. I'll go to these local boxing shows, and they're calling a guy that's 5-7 champ. I'm like, that don't mean nothing. And then you see a guy that, like Vinny Pazienza was at a local show. I got to hang out for him for a while. When you walk up and call him champ, well, he was a champ. And to be called that, when somebody calls you champ, that has to mean something. That's special. It's something nobody can ever take away from you, no matter what happens.
Yeah, that's even more beneficial to me because what I've done in the boxing business, and like you said before, I've become the first cruiserweight champion in history, not only with the WBC but also with the IBF. That's a double that they can never take away from me. But on the same token, I fought as a light heavyweight and fought some of the light heavyweight. It's gone now. But the cruiserweight will always be there, and that's one of my fortunes in life that I become the world champion of two of the 3 commissions out there.
Well, now there's 20
and
commissions
like you
out
say,
there.
that'll never be equaled.
Hell, nowadays they got like 2 champions for the WBA and everything, I think. So, do you still follow boxing today?
Well, when you say two champions for the WBA.
Oh, yeah, you got the super champion and you got the regular champion.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. And there's only 1 pound difference between the both of them.
Yeah. If there's any difference in between the two of them. But do you still follow the fight game today?
I don't fight the following game by watching it on TV because what I got to do in order to make a living, I take care of lawns here, and that's what I do. And when a fight does come on, the only thing I can do is get it on TV.
Yeah.
I think nowadays that we got this book coming out, we got a movie coming out, and I'm going to start making some traveling trips to some of the places that I've been, especially Las Vegas. So I'm going to be doing some traveling here in the next couple months, and in that time, then I think I maybe start attending some of these boxing festivities of where I can, me and my wife can take a trip and go down to go back to Las Vegas, maybe fly into Montana. Of course, they haven't had a fight back there at Coon's age, but there's other places where here in Florida that we can drive down there and make my presence known. And when that does happen, the people eyes open up wide and say, I never saw you lived here in Florida. I've never met a world champion before. And not only a world champion, but the first cruiserweight champion in history in 2 different commissions. And I tell you what, where we're going to be going in the future, and I'm going to be making some trips back to Montana because we got that book coming out, and the movie coming out. That's my manager in the back. Yeah.
I got a manager like that too. I call her my wife.
Yeah. She corrects everything that you say.
Yep. That's what wives are good for, because that's what mine does to me all the time.
We've been together for 25 years.
35.
35. I mean 35.
You can't screw that up. Now you're in trouble when we get off here, Marvin.
I felt pretty good at 25, but 35. Oh, yeah, that's right, 35. I aged real fast in the last 5 seconds. I sit back and say, oh, Jesus. No, but, things are going good. And as far as the boxing is concerned, my brother's doing things up there in Montana where I might go up there and try to help him out every now and then by making an appearance and let the people know that I'm still alive. Because there's a lot of people even around here where I live are astonished on who they're living with and who's cutting their grass. I got Marvin Camel out there, the 2-time Cruiserweight Champion of the world, cutting my grass.
You ever think about getting on one of those zero turns and just wear your WBC green belt while you're cutting the grass?
No, that's what I got. I got three of those zero turn radius mowers, and I got 5 places here of my own here that I got to take care of.
Yeah.
But I'm in a place where they got 80 different locations where I just have to drive my mower to it. I don't have to put it on a truck.
Yeah. That makes it a lot easier.
But those days are coming. Those days are going to be coming to an end because I can't be doing this my whole life because I'm a 2-time world champion. I should be a millionaire. I should be sitting at home watching a big screen TV.
Yeah.
But that'll never happen.
When is the movie supposed to come out, or when did they start production on it?
Well, I tell you what, I'm getting on the internet every now and then, and I'm trying to get things started and see who I have to get a hold of, and because I signed the contract with them.
Yeah.
And they got to get a hold of me. But it's going to be made, and the person that is headlining this thing here came, and I should never have did this. I've given him 30 years of my life. I've given him 30 years of my life in boxing articles.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard from him yet, and I haven't seen him. So I've got to get on the phone once because I started today. I'm going to see where they're at because that is my life. And maybe what he's doing is back there taking every aspect of every article and going to make one, and maybe that's what the movie's going to be generated around.
Yeah.
But, unless he called me and let me know, then I'm sitting here in awe, wondering.
Now, the book, I think, was released in December of 2014. It's titled The Warrior in the Ring. Brian D. Ambrosio wrote the book. I know it was nominated for the High Plains Book Award and several other awards. Number one, what was it like having a book made about you? And number two, and more importantly, where can people buy the book?
Well, you can buy the book on Amazon.com. They got it for sale. It probably runs about $20, but that's where you can pick it up at. And when he created the book, D'Ambrosio, it was not one of his best things that he did his whole life, but then it was something that he was very, very proud of.
Yeah.
And I was very, very proud of what he asked and what was in the book, but it wasn't totally put in the book, because there's things in there that I went through that no boxer will ever be through and come out and become a world champion. Because my life it wasn't a bowl of cherries. There was a lot of pit stops in there, and what I had to do, and I fought to achieve.
Yeah.
And I did it. I did something that no other boxer is going to be able to achieve. And that's something for me to be very proud of.
Yes, it is. And I want to remind everybody, I'm looking at it right now on Amazon.com, Warrior in the Ring, The Life of Marvin Camel. I know it's got
Hey, come on now. When you start trying to announce me, You make sure you get the name right.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I've had George
Marvin
Foreman on
Campbell.
before and screw it up.
Are you Marvin Campbell?
You think you've only been married 25 years, Marvin, and you're going to give me crap about this?
Yeah. I got to put a big letter, CAMEL.
But Warrior in the Ring,
Hey,
the
Marvin
life of Marvin
Campbell, come over here. I want to talk to you.
The life
I
of
don't
Marvin
look at
Camel or Marvin Campbell, however you want to look at it. Just go
Marvin
buy the
Campbell?
book. It's on paperback on Amazon for $15.95. You get the hardcover for $29.94. See, I screw up more than just words. I screw up numbers too. Marvin, it was an absolute honor to have you on the show today, sir.
Well, I tell you what, it was very, very honorable, nice for me to be here. You know, and I enjoy things like this, and I hope it never quits. And the next time I have this kind of gathering, I hope it's going to be at a eulogy.
Well, you don't want a eulogy. That's no good.
Well,
but, hey,
you never know. I'm going to write the speeches for the people that's going to stand over my casket and say, I knew Marvin Camel, even though they've never met me, but they're going to read off the script. He was one of the greatest boxers. I'm not a fighter. I'm a boxer.
Yeah.
He's one of the greatest boxers you ever want to meet. And if you don't believe me, you buy the book and read the book. And only believe what's half's in there, but the other half I didn't put in. So there's still another half out there floating around where the people can listen to your radio station and get the full facts.
Well, that's what we were shooting for. And I'd love to have you back on in the future sometime if you're interested.
Well, I tell you what, whatever happens, I'll be here. I'm not gonna die today or tomorrow because I'm one of the healthiest guys you ever want to meet.
All right, Marvin, I want to thank you for coming on the show again, and I really appreciate it, sir.
Well, I sure appreciate you being here and asking me, and thank you, and thanks the public for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later.
All right, thanks, champ. All right, guys, That was Marvin Camel.
Hey!
See, I was just messing with you. But Marvin Camel, two-time Cruiserweight World Champion, the first ever Cruiserweight World Champion in the IBF and the WBC. Make sure you check out his book on Amazon, Warrior in the Ring. It looks like a great read, actually. I just now purchased it, so I'm going to read the book. So I may call you back, Marvin, and have more questions. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, YouTube, Spotify. Every place you find sports podcast, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for the champ, Marvin Camel, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.